Can I have your attention, please? We're going to get started. Go ahead and continue to eat if you're not finished. We're going to have our speaker today is Dale Crowder. If any of you saw the producer this morning, he became Bill Crowder. He said he would go by either name. It doesn't matter to him. But,
we have some others too.
After Dale's talk last year at our breakfast, you know, we all scratched our heads and said, who in the world can follow that guy? And nobody could, so I called him back and told him, Dale, I'm the guy. I said, can you give us a sequel? And he said, I don't know any more funny stuff. And I said, doesn't have to be funny, just give us another talk. People will love you whatever you do. So it's my pleasure that he's agreed to do that again for us this year. And good friend of mine and all of us, he's a great representative of Seminole High School and his class of 1956, where he was probably better known as Andre Agassi of that generation. But I'm just tickled to death, Dale, that you agreed to do that again this year. So without anything further, turn the podium over to Dale.
Thank you, Doug. Why are we here? Why did we all show up here today and last night and tonight? Do we have anything better to do? I mean, even those of you who live here in Seminole, you know, didn't have to drive far, but don't you have something you could do that was productive? And those of you who drove from within Oklahoma, you drove a long, some of you drove a long way, and you know, you could have been doing something else. And some of us who drove from out of state, we really drove a long ways. Why are we here? And you know, if you had told some of your friends or a friend that you were coming here for the Hall of Fame and coming here for the induction ceremony and those kinds of things, they said, Seminole? Isn't Seminole just another small town in Oklahoma? And isn't Seminole High School just another high school built on a mound of Oklahoma red dirt? And if they said that, they would be wrong, Doug. They would be wrong. We came here. Some of us had specific reasons why we came, and those specific reasons may vary one from another, but our general reasons, I would guess, are about the same. Last year I talked about football. I'm not going to talk about football this year, Doug. Okay. Except I wanted to remind you that I was a football player on the Seminole Chieftain football team, and I made 50% of the tackles when I was in the game. Now, some of you people that weren't here last year are thinking, that wasn't funny. What Dale said wasn't funny. Why are they laughing? Well, and you probably say, well, I kind of remember Dale from high school a little bit, but I don't remember him being a football player, and I certainly don't remember him being a good enough football player to make half the tackles. Well, I didn't say I was a good football player. I said I was a football player. And Coach, I was a football player. And I was on the field for 2 plays. And I made one of the tackles. And the other one, the guy made a touchdown, but we don't talk about that. But I made one of the tackles. So with the new math, the old math, and the new math now is the old math, and the old math is the ancient math, and the new math that's new now, I don't even know about. No matter how you calculate it, isn't that right, that I made 50% of the tackles? So I shot straight with you. A little deceptive, but I shot straight with you. So, but I promised I wasn't going to talk about football. so I'm not. Except my longtime friend Gerald Wood is here today. He was inducted last year, and so this year Doug told him the secret handshake so he could get in here and be with us. So here he is. Gerald and I were on that third team together as football players. But Gerald, out of all the third teamers, was the only guy that had the nerve, the guts, the intestinal fortitude in the Holdenville game in the last minute to go up to Homer Simmons and say, "Coach, I want to play. We're way ahead." And Coach Simmons looked down at Gerald and said, "I don't know, Wood. You'll get hurt." And Gerald was either not real smart on that day or he was brave. He said, "I don't care. I want to play." And so we all got to play because of Gerald. On the first play that Gerald got to play, Holdenville snapped the ball, and here came the runner, and Gerald started closing in to try to tackle him, and a big Holdenville lineman went whacko right in the head and knocked him cuckoo. Coach Simmons was not only a good coach, he was a wise man because Wood got hurt. He didn't know what was going on until the game was over when I told him I made a tackle. I didn't tell him I didn't stop the guy make the touchdown. Well, I've got to quit talking about football. Except, my dad was a football player. He was a college football player, and he lettered in college football at Central State. And his coach was a well-known, good coach in Oklahoma at that time, named C.W. Wantland. He was our Bill Wantland's grandfather. And Bill, I want you to know, my dad respected, liked, and admired your granddaddy. I'm a little interested in knowing how many of you here had my dad as a teacher in either physics, chemistry, journalism, big chief staff, annual staff, or 3 to 4 class. I won't ask how many of you were in the 3 to 4 class. But anyway, I just was curious about that because you all had him as a teacher. He taught me a lot of things as my father, but I never had him as a teacher, as a school teacher, which was not real smart on my part because I was a science major in college, and I didn't take chemistry, and I didn't take physics, and when I got in those classes in college, I was the only sorry turkey in the class that didn't know, one thing about chemistry and one thing about physics, Doug. And it was tough competition. So I wasn't real smart on that thing, but I just thought, being in your dad's class wouldn't be comfortable. So that's my life story there. But I want to talk about teachers today, the teachers that taught us, and I want to honor those teachers because they made a difference, I believe, in our lives. And I want to talk about 6 specific teachers. Now, all my teachers I ever had from grade school on up made a real positive difference in my life, but I want to talk about 6 that I could demonstrate what they did. I'm not going to, but I could demonstrate what they did for me, and in a very measurable and tangible way, what they did. And maybe when you hear about them, it'll relate something to you about teachers you really admired and what they have done for you. So, since I'm not going to talk about football, I think I'll just talk about typing. You know, type on the typewriter. Sam Steinley. Sam Steinley was our typing teacher. Now, why in the world I took typing, I don't know, because I didn't plan on, whatever career I had, I didn't plan on typing. But my senior year, I took that course, and I walked into the room, and we each had a separate desk and a separate typewriter. There were those mechanical ones, not electric. And I sat down and I looked down at the keys on it, and I thought, you know, I'm never going to learn to type on this thing. The keys aren't even in alphabetical order. Then I looked around and I thought, every typewriter I see is defective. But then Sam Steinley convinced me that that's the way it was supposed to be. And he said, okay, everybody get ready. Put your right hand on the keyboard, and we're going to start out with 2 letters. I don't remember which 2, it doesn't matter, but take one finger on one letter, one on the other, and go type, 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 type. And I thought, this is goofy. How can I ever learn to type going type, 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 type? I thought, he's gone south on us. You know, this is no way to teach a subject. Just tell us how to type. Then he said, okay, take the other hand. Type, 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 type. I thought, he just doesn't know how to teach it. Why am I in here? But I'm here to tell you I was wrong. I was just flat wrong. By the end of that semester, even I could sit there, look at the text material up here, not look at the keyboard, and when my eye would hit a letter, my finger, without me talking to it, would go to that letter. I don't know how it works, even though I was a science major. I don't really understand how well the brain and all the muscles and all that can see. Same way in music, though. You see a note or you see that type and your finger goes where it's supposed to go and you just type. And I can do it to this day. And I thought I wasn't going to use typing. But in my law practice, I've used it 48 years now. And when computers came out big time, I use it every day. I appreciate Sam Stein, even though he had to type. I appreciate it because I learned something that made a real difference in my life. And so Sam Steinley made my life better. J.J. McCoy and Joe Reed, my 2 band directors. J.J. McCoy, when my class was in the 5th grade, he would come over to the grade school toward the last of the year and once a week during the music period, and he brought this big box of tonettes. You remember tonettes? They're these kind of little sophisticated looking whistles that are black plastic, and you put your fingers on them and they'd go tweet, 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 tweet. Now they were more in tune than that, but that's how it did. And he said to us, okay, if you will master the tune that I'm going to teach you, then you can take summer band and learn to play a band instrument. And I wanted to do that. So I worked at it, but when he got up the first day, I thought we were just going to start playing. He said, all right, take your tonette, put it in your mouth. Well, that was easy. And then you put your 2 fingers on the 2 notes. I want you to go tweet, tweet, tweet. I thought, he's been talking to Sam Stein. And we just tweet, 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 tweet. I will never learn how to play this thing going that. I thought he was going to teach us how to play it. Well, I was wrong again. By the end of that period, I could play the tune that he asked us to learn. So I was going to get to do summer band. And that tune, you're all familiar with this famous tune. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And boy, could I play that. So I took summer band. My older brother Gene had an old trombone. He was in the band a little while. So I had that old trombone, and Mr. McCoy taught me how to play it a little bit. And so by the second semester of the 8th grade, I made the high school band. I wasn't real good, but I made it. And Mr. McCoy was my band director for my 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. And then he stepped down as band director. And a dynamic young band director came to town, Janet, Joe Reed. And he was a tremendous musician, tremendous band director, charismatic guy, and we all just instantly appreciated and liked him. And he was a trombone player. I mean, he could make that horn sing. And so I was proud to have a band director that was a trombone player, since I was one. And I would guess that Joe Reed, when he was thinking about coming here, checked on to see who we had in the band, if we had good players and that sort of thing. And maybe he probably was interested in trombone players, because he was one. And he would have found out the history of all the tremendous trombone players Seminole High School's had. And I even remember, I can go back as far as James Neal McCoy. He was just an outstanding trombone player. After that, R.T. Shields, outstanding trombone player. And then Gary Prather, outstanding trombone player. And Bill Newby moved to town, superstar trombone player. And in the 6th grade, there was a phenom on the trombone, little kid about that tall, named Hugh Esmond. And he came from a musical family. His cousin was Woody Guthrie, who wrote and sang that classic ballad, "This Land Is My Land." Well, that was what Joe would have known about. Those guys, tremendous players. And in the other first chairs in the band were top-notch musicians. I was in the band. That's all. I was just in there. But I knew about these good players. Well, after he got there, he was well equipped. The trombone section was powerful because Gary Prather, my sophomore year, was our first chair, but my junior year, his senior year, he was second chair because Bill Newby, a sophomore, moved to town. He was a preacher's kid. He was so good on the trombone that he was that year in the all-state band, and if I remember right, he was first chair in the all-state band, close to it. That would mean he was the best high school trombone player in Oklahoma. And so Joe Reed knew I got Prather for this first year I'm here, and I got Newby for 2 years after that. I am set. Crowder? I don't know anything about him. I think he's second, third chair or something like that. Well, so our junior year, Prather first chair, had a wonderful band, wonderful trombone section. Well, Prather wasn't first chair, Newby was. And the school year ended, summer came, Prather graduated, and I'm at home, not worrying about much. I get a call. Joe Reed. And I thought, why is he calling me? I'm sure before he called me, he agonized and cried. Because he said, Dale, Bill Newby has moved. You're going to have to be first chair this year. And I felt sorry for him. Because I knew he was a wonderful trombone player, and he had wonderful trombone players, and he was stuck with me. I didn't want to be first chair. I didn't have the musical talent, number one, which is fairly important. And number two, I didn't want the responsibility. The first chair has to be a leader of it. They've got to, when the other guys missing over, they gotta be right and covered up and lead the thing. And we play tough music. And I didn't want to be first chair. But Mr. Reed said to me, Dale, you need to practice a lot. You need to practice all summer and work hard at it, because I need you. I'm going to depend on you to be first chair. You're the only senior. All those other guys are young. And by the way, as a side note, and I wound up being first chair, as a side note, when Hugh Edgman was inducted into the hall 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I saw him out on the floor and went up to him and said, Hugh, I want to thank you. And he said, why? For being in the 7th grade when I was a senior. Because you would have beaten me out, and that would have kind of embarrassed me when you were in the 8th grade, because when he got to be the 8th grader, he was first chair. He was something special. Well, anyway, Joe Reed said, Dale, if you really work hard at something, you'll be surprised what you can do. And that's been true throughout my career. But back to playing the trombone. I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. And when school started, I was first chair. Now, I didn't come close. I mean, I wasn't anywhere near the league of all those other trombone players. But I was better than I was at the beginning of the summer. I would rate myself that I went from barely mediocre to adequate. And adequate ain't bad. Only because of the inspiration of Joe Reed and the teaching, and then during the year, he would push me. He would work with me. He would figure out ways to psychologically cause me to be so. I'm competitive by nature, and if he said there's something maybe I wouldn't be able to do, I'd work hard at it. And maybe I'd do it or not, but I'd sure work hard at it. Well, anyway, the year went by. We had great first chairs in all the other sections, and we had an adequate trombone section. And we got a superior rating at state, and that's what you look for, a 1 rating in the state concert. And so it worked out. It worked out. And I didn't know really how Mr. Reed felt about how I had done, but I knew that, I didn't just blow the whole thing wide open. And I knew, based on the history of the trombone players, that I was the least talented first chair trombone player in that, at least in the 15-year history I knew about. And I was afraid that if somebody really checked on it, I might be the least talented first chair trombone player in the history of Seminole High School. Now, I do not aspire to that position, so I haven't checked on it, but there's a fellow getting inducted today that's one of those superstar trombone players that I didn't know about till already, and he was first chair for 5 years too. So that's got it up to 20 years. So I'm through counting. But I wanted to know what Joe Reed thought of me, and I brought my annual. And when you're a senior and you're getting ready to leave and get people to sign it, I'll read you just a part of what Joe Reed said, and it meant so much to me. He said, to Dale, I guess you made as much progress as anyone in the band this year. Well, I guess so. But that was nice of him to say. He said, I appreciate your efforts more than you know. You did the band a great credit by your hard work and determination. Then he said a little bit more, but I really felt good about that, because I knew that he had to be disappointed that he didn't have a superstar in that position. But he treated me well, and he taught me as much as I could handle. And I just so appreciate him. And I appreciate Mr. McCoy and Mr. Reed both, because they took my class that were in the band. They took us from Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to playing a movement from the Grand Canyon Suite by that famous classical composer, Ferdi Grofé, and that was considered a very difficult piece for high school bands. So, Mr. McCoy and Joe Reed, they didn't turn me into a fine musician, but they did turn me on to fine music. And they made my life better, and I appreciate them. Chuck Boyle and Dewey Allen. When I was in the 9th grade, Chuck Boyle came as an assistant football coach here. He was only here 1 year. And during the summertime, he was the tennis pro at Southern Hills Country Club. And he taught tennis up there. And I got to see that country club once. I'd never seen a country club. I'd seen one in a magazine once, I think. But I lived in a modest neighborhood on North Highland Street, and we had a gravel road. You know, I didn't really know what a country club was, but I found out, kind of liked it. But that's all I got this, one day. But Chuck Boyle was our gym teacher the first semester. In the second semester, he said, I'm going to teach a tennis class. And I didn't really want to be a tennis player. I wanted to be a football player, but that didn't pan out because I was a shrimp. But I had a good attitude. But Chuck Boyle, my mother encouraged me to take that tennis course. So Chuck Boyle was my tennis coach. Some of the guys in the class, Doug, knew how to play pretty good by the time they were in the 9th grade, but most of us didn't know anything about playing tennis. And I was one of those that didn't know anything. So Chuck, on the first day that he started teaching me, took me out on the court, and he'd say, all right, Crowder, here's how you hold, this is the grip. And it shows me the grip, shows me how to do the swing for the forehand. And he said, I'm going to drop this ball. I'm drop and you hit it. So drop, hit, drop, hit, drop, hit. Tight, tight, tight. He's been talking to Steinway. I thought, this is goofy. Why didn't he get on the other side of the court and hit it to me? Let's just learn to play tennis. No, it was drop, hit, drop, hit. I never dreamed. That was second semester of the 9th grade, and I didn't know hardly anything. I could barely hit it when he dropped it. I never dreamed that by my senior year I would be playing in the first position of singles and doubles, and Jimmy Johns and I would win the conference championship in doubles, and I would make it to the quarterfinals of the state tournament and get beaten by the guy who won the state championship. After drop, hit, drop, hit. And I never dreamed that after high school I would get to go to OBU and play on 2 conference championship tennis teams there and play against all the collegiate conference teams, but also we got to play against OU, OSU, Tulsa, Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, and Texas. This little old Seminole boy started out, drop, hit. You know, Chuck Boyle knew how to teach, but it wasn't just Chuck Boyle. It was Dewey Allen. Now, by telling you what I did, I'm not trying to shine the light on me. I'm shining the light on Chuck Boyle and even a bigger light on Dewey Allen. Chuck Boyle taught me the fundamentals of tennis, but Dewey Allen took me, molded me, and he taught me the nuances of tennis, the finesse of tennis, how to do a spin a certain way, how to do an American twist, serve, how to drop shot, how to strategize, how to analyze your opponent, all those kinds of things, and how to play competitive tournament tennis. Dewey Allen was a great coach, but more than that, he was a great mentor and a role model and my friend. And Dewey Allen loved all his tennis players, and he kept up with us when he could. And because he liked to know how we did after school and after we got out in the world. And I called him up several months ago, and phone rang and an answering machine answered, and so I left my name and number, that's all. Hung up, and just a few minutes later, he called back. He said, Dale, this is Dewey Allen. I saw your message here, and anytime one of my tennis players calls, I call back as quick as I can. He didn't realize it, I'm sure, but that touched my heart, that he considered me one of his tennis players. Because there's a bunch of them. But that is a big honor to me that I'm one of Dewey Allen's tennis players. I hadn't played tennis in a long time, but then I used to feel like I could run like the wind. And now I just get winded when I run. But Dewey Allen changed my life. Chuck Boyle started Dewey Allen and gave me an opportunity. I wasn't able to play football, but I got to play tennis. And it opened some doors for me, and it was a big benefit. But Dewey Allen taught me a bigger thing. I had a tendency, if somebody beat me, I got discouraged or I'd get down on myself. And he said, Dale, don't do that. If you get beat, just remember, you've always got another match coming up. You get ready for that next match. You analyze what you did right or wrong. If you need to do something different, get ready for that next match. Don't give up. And that's the kind of guy he is. And I'm thankful, Chuck Boyle and Dewey Allen, because they made my life better. The last person I want to talk about is the one that changed my life the most, Ruth Hanthorne. I was afraid of that woman. My image of Ruth Hanthorne was that she was a terror on wheels. And I observed, well, I'm not sure she knew me from Adam. She may have known me because my dad was a teacher, but I didn't ever know if she knew me, and certainly I never had a conversation with her, never had a class with her in high school. But I observed her sometimes when she was on hall duty. And I was so afraid of her, I was Mr. Nice Guy and didn't get out of line at all, but I saw some people get out of line. And she would be on them like a blue jay on a grasshopper. It was not a pretty picture. And so I was afraid of her. I used to think that when we did the Ia Ta, Ta Ta Mana, that was just Cherokee for Ms. Hanthorne's on the loose. But in those days, I was very shy about a lot of things, but I was very shy about public speaking. I just could not do it. Just absolutely could not do it. And I couldn't even stand up in one of the class meetings and say anything. I just couldn't do it. If I got around people and knew them well and it was a small group and we were just talking, I could do that. But I couldn't do public speaking. But I wanted to. I felt like I had something to say, but I was afraid to say it. And so I didn't get the chance in high school to have her as a teacher, but my first semester of college, I went to junior college. Mary Weston Minahan and I were in the same biology class. And I decided, and I was just there on one semester because I wanted to go to OBU the second semester and try out for the tennis team, but couldn't afford to go there first semester. So I stayed at junior college, and I decided, Miss Hanthorne's teaching speech. Maybe she can help me get over this shyness. And so I went up, it was on a Friday, you go up and enroll. And then you go to each class you enrolled in for 10 minutes. And the teacher tells you the scope of the course for the semester, and they tell you what to be prepared for the coming Monday. So Gerald Wooden and I and Anthony Pennybaker all were in that class. And you were in there, Mary, also. And Miss Hanthorne stood up there and said, okay, on the first day of class, on that Monday, I want you to be prepared to make a speech. And all I want you to do is get up and say your name, your major, and your hobby, and sit down. Well, how can anybody learn to make a speech just getting up and saying your name, your hobby, and that's kind of tight. She has been talking to Stymie also. They all have this technique. But anyway, I went home and I thought, I can't do it. I can't even get up and do that. And I said, I'm going to have to, drop out of that course. I need to take basket weaving or nuclear physics, but I ain't taking a speech. And then I thought, no, if that's Miss Hanthorne calling, I guess not. Uh-oh, you heard that calling back. I thought, I just can't do it. It just bothered me so bad. And I just fretted and worried all weekend. And then I'd say, no, Dale, you've got to bite the bullet and do it. And I said, okay, to myself, I'm going to do it. And then a couple, 3 hours go by. I start panicking again and said, I'm not going to do it. Finally, I said, I've just got to do it. Just got to do it. And then I thought, I've got to make a speech on Monday. And, sometimes I get by with a little humor, in things and helps me out. But what is funny about giving your name, your major, and your hobby? That isn't funny. So I thought, well, here's what I'm going to do. So I was prepared. I just hope and pray I'm not going to be called on first. So we go in. They're all sitting there. And there's a lot of people that were in my shoes. I just didn't know it. A lot of people, are shy about speaking in public. But I thought I was the only one in the world that was. So Miss Hanthorne then started calling on people, and good for me, I was not first. And she finally called on me, and I used my strategy. I got up, I walked up there, spun around, said, my name's Dale Crowder, my major's biology, and my hobby's tennis, and that's all. I sat down, and people kind of chuckled. And I don't know if they're laughing at me, but I kind of think they're laughing with me. And I thought, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't so bad. And then the next speech we had to do is give a 2 or 3 minute speech about your hobby. Well, I didn't realize the psychology, more than that, the analysis that she would do when you do this stuff. She wanted to know if you were shy or how you pronounce words. Did you say fingers instead of fingers? Or that thing over there and stuff like that. But also she wanted to see how you did and how you made contact with your eyes with the audience, all those things. And so my 2 or 3 minute speech was on how to hit an American twist, Doug. And I walked them through it. But it was scary, probably to them too. But lo and behold, she would encourage me and tell me I did pretty good on something. She may have exaggerated to give me confidence. But by almost through the period of time, the semester, I couldn't believe it, but when she'd say, who wants to be first? I would raise my hand. And I thought, she is she's doing a job on me. That's good stuff. Well, then toward the end of the semester, she said, we're going to have a junior college play. And all of you are going to be in it one way or the other. You're either going to be cast members or stagecraft people or something. And it's going to be it's going to be the play Life with Father. And the mother is going to be Mary Weston, now Mary Weston Minahan. And the father is going to be Raymond Anderson, yes, thank you. Raymond Anderson. And the littlest, there's 4 brothers and 4 boys. The littlest one, she had to get grade school. She got Ronnie Wright, the trumpeter. He was about 2 feet tall. And she said, okay. And Anthony and Gerald and I have been lifelong friends since early grade school. And we were all in that class. And she said, okay, Anthony, Gerald, and Dale, I want Gerald to play the older brother, Anthony the middle brother, and Dale, you play the 12-year-old brother. And I said, wait, I'm bigger than those guys, and I'm older. She said, well, you all look the same size to me. And I said, well, we're the same height, but I weigh 4 pounds more. And Mary Weston playing my mother, she's younger than I am. I don't want to be a 12-year-old. But she talked me into it. And I did it. And we had the matinee with the grade schoolers came over, and we had that play, and it was fun. It worked out, and they seemed to like it. And then that night, we had the performance for the townspeople and the high schoolers, and that worked out good, and we liked that. But one strange thing about it, my beard grew fast, or my whiskers grew fast, and I didn't have gray hair. It had real dark whiskers, kind of like Richard Nixon. And I got, the 5 o'clock shadow at about 3 o'clock. And so I was the only guy in the cast, and I played a 12-year-old. I was the only guy in the cast that had to shave for the matinee and then shave again for the evening. But I learned a lot from Miss Anthorn, and it inspired me. She inspired me with that 3-hour course so much. I went ahead and took another 12 hours in college to enhance what she had taught me, because I realized I needed it for one thing, and number 2, what a benefit it was going to be with me for my career. And made my living. Much of it had to do with being able to speak to juries and boards of directors and groups of people. So, what a change in my life she gave me. What a tremendous benefit it was to have her as a teacher. And I also learned she was not terror on wheels. She was a good-hearted person that cared about her students, well-trained, well-qualified, and was able to see through this little boy's timidity and make a change in my life. I so appreciated her. And all my teachers were special. And I would suggest, Doug, that I bet your teachers made a difference in your life, a positive difference. And Larry Minahan, I bet your teachers made a real difference in your life. Herb Gunner, I bet your teachers made your life better, didn't they?
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I think that's true of all of us. All of us. Our teachers that we had in high school made our life better. So, why are we here? Why are we here? We're here to honor Seminole as a town, Seminole High School as a school, honor our teachers, and to honor those 12 outstanding inductees we have today. So if someone had said to you or thought, Seminole, isn't that just another little town in Oklahoma? They would be wrong. It's not just another little town. It's our town. It's our hometown, and it's special. And Seminole High School, it's not just another high school. Brother, it's our high school, and it's special. And that red dirt on which it is built, you bet. That's our red dirt, and it's special. And our teachers were special. Our teachers were special. And those Hall of Famers that we're going to see today, 12 outstanding people. Their resumes are wonderful. When they graduated and went out into the world, like when you graduated and went out into the world, and like most Seminole graduates that went out into the world, went out into the world and made the world a better place. And that's what happens with people that were taught by our teachers when they left our high school. So I had one other specific reason why I came today, because I wanted another chance to see each one of you, my fellow Hall of Famers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. As Dale was giving a speech, I was thinking what he said at the end there, that all happened to me except for band. And even Miss Hanthorne, I was scared to death. She said, "You should be a good speaker. You're an athlete. Speak from your diaphragm or something," she said. I said, "I can't do that." And it didn't take on me, but thank goodness it did for Dale. I just marvel and love hearing his stories. And I hope he doesn't think that I'm putting pressure on him, asking him to give all these talks, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope all of you have. I still talk to Coach Allen. He's 90 or 91 years old now, and he's not doing real well right now, so I remember him. But we are very fortunate for the teachers we had, Dale, and I appreciate your talk.
Okay.
Hope to see you all at the induction ceremony this afternoon.
Thank you.